can bring them in. Court report, is that the best place for you to be, to hear them, or?
Well, I have all this stuff with me. I mean, if he could stand on the other side of that, would you be able to stand on the other side of the screen and talk for us?
You can't operate that. You just got to speak up.
I'll speak up loud
Okay.
and slow down.
That's good. Okay.
One of the court reporters moved over to the, that seat over there.
Yeah, she's wireless.
May proceed.
Before we move on to chapter 3, I want to ask you again about the pros, because I think I misunderstood something. One probe was recovered from Mr. Scott.
Yes,
2 cartridges at the scene,
yes,
and 2 probes found at the scene.
well, 2 probes that related to marker 2 and marker 4.
Okay. But there is a missing probe.
There's a missing probe.
Okay, so a total of how many probes were found at the scene?
3,
Well, then there's one in Mr. Scott.
that's 1. Marker 4 has a lead with the probe on the end of it, that's 2. And marker 2 has a wire with a probe on the end of it, that's 3.
Okay. For a total of 3.
I thought that
Okay, you're counting the one on Scott as one found at the scene.
it's the scene,
Okay.
so yes,
Recovered at autopsy, but found at the scene.
yes.
Okay. All right. So, what were you asked to do next regarding locations you?
The individual frames, you heard a lot about this yesterday, about individual frames in reference to the audio file. 455 is right about when shot 1 shows up on the audio file. There's a peak.
And
Okay.
that is from the original Santana video.
Unenhanced enough, the original video, nothing done to it, brought into a video editor with a video track and an audio track, and looking at individual frames and the WAV files. So if you look at, this is 455, and you look down here at Mr. Scott's feet, there's quite a bit of blurring here. And if I look at the next frame, 456,
And again, I know we spent a lot of time on this yesterday, but between frame 455 and 456, how much time elapsed?
1/30th of a second.
1/30th
Yeah,
of a second.
30 frames per second, 1/30. So, although there's a slight shift of the marker in the video editing program to the start of the wave, it's 1/30 of a second off. I chose to use this frame because there's more clarity down here, and you'll understand why in a little bit. So the method that I chose to use is you have to identify fixed objects in the reference frame. And the fixed objects, I chose the tree in the foreground. Although it's not a perfect line, it does give you a horizontal line across, which is the yellow brick road, the 2 telephone poles, and the fence line. So that became my reference. And what I did with that reference is, let's step back a second. The scene changed in one other way. The neighbors to the yellow brick road, the pawn shop, put up a rather high fence. And this is what I had to deal with in doing the work I'm going to discuss. Of course, we know Mr. Santana was on this side of the fence, on this side of the lower fence. Okay, I couldn't, there's this much distance, I could fit there, but I couldn't do what I needed to do in monitoring and changing things on the other side of the fence with the computer and stuff. So I spent a lot of time hanging over that fence with revisits. But there's some obstructions there, not insurmountable. So we're back to the reference shot with the,
That is from the original Santana video again.
that's frame 455 original video. And remove the background image, what do we have? We have a reference. So I printed that out in transparency, but I didn't go to the scene and do this. What I did was, you'll see some pictures later on. I got an exemplar phone. I piped it out, the video signal out of the phone to a big monitor with that transparency on the monitor. So I could sit there, and I wasn't doing it manually. You'll see the fixtures. They evolved as I did it, but I could sit there, move the phone around, and watch this big projection of it change to alignment. That was my technique.
When you say exemplar phone, a phone, newer obviously, but like Mr.
No, it
Santana.
wasn't newer.
Was it?
I bought on eBay. I mean, I can't tell you the exact production date, but it's the same model. It's not the latest, greatest one, or anything like that, yeah.
Okay, it states Exhibit 10, Mr. Santana's phone,
Right,
which you've examined.
yes. So, we're looking at the view from my camera placed on the other side of the lower fence, and we're looking at a scene photo on 12/17. We were out there November 20th, 15. We were out there 12/16, 15, 12/17, 15, and 4, I believe, 29, 16. We spent a lot of time out there, okay? Doing a lot of things besides this. You've seen some of them, and you'll see some others. So this is just some examples. There's probably 20 or 30 attempts for each camera match. This is just to show you how I'm going through the process. I was close here, so I want to snap a shot. And you can see it's not bad. The trees line up pretty good, the poles lining up, a little there. Let's see it change. Now the lighting's going to change because the days change, the times change. But you can see that there's a shift, and that's Mr. Thompson there. He looks like I brought my kids to work with me. He's rather gifted in this. Anyway, that's it. There's another example right there, and this is what I consider my match. Now, how do I test that or show that? Well, if I go back and forth.
Wait a minute, let's talk about what's in that. That's not from Santana's video.
No, this is a shot taken December 17, 2015. What we did before we went to the scene, in part of our prep, is since we decided to use the reverse projection, we made silhouettes. So I basically enlarged Mr. Slager, print him out, and my Mikey built plywood backups and stands for him. So we had silhouettes, and they're not meant to be exactly to scale. It's just not possible. We're taking an image from a video this big and blowing up this big. They're visual representations, and I'll get more into that in a little bit.
But you can see the stands in
Yes,
between.
there's the 2x4s coming down. There's a T-stand right here. Same thing right here with Mr. Slager. Yes.
Okay.
And we can move them around. So that is the actual frame from Mr. Santana's video, and if I toggle back and forth, I was pretty happy with the result. Is it possible to get it perfect? No. I get as close as I can. I brought Tim over, I brought other people at the scene over and said, I like this, how do you like it? Everybody agreed, so that was my camera match for that one. I did this 3 times, and you'll see all 3 times, okay? So from this, we have our shot 1 camera match. What I wanted to do is I wanted to say, okay, we make minor changes in the positions of both the silhouette of Mr. Slager and Mr. Scott. How noticeable are they? So I was asking my helper, I'm 130 feet away. That's where approximately Santana was. I did some of it, running back and forth, so I'm hollering to Mikey, okay, Mikey, let's do this. So I'd asked him to move it in. Each of these silhouettes moved in 1 inch. That was my target. And you see the next. Watch both Mr. Scott and Mr. Slager. I'm sorry, that's Mr. Slager and Mr. Scott. That right there, if I go back and forth, you watch the ground level, you'll see both of them are moving. Now,
Why did you need to do that?
well, I wanted to see what change in position becomes recognizable through my technique. Okay, to try and get an error rate. Now, in preparation for day, I go over all the work, and when I did that, and I zoomed in on this photo, I saw that it's more than 1 inch. I looked at how many pixels represented an inch, and I looked at the distance, it's actually 2 inches. So that's a 2-inch movement. I don't want to misrepresent it. It's bigger than what I thought. I wasn't placing it. I can't do anything about it right now, but that's 2 inches right there according to, not the slide, 1 inch is 2 inches. So we're seeing 2 inch right here. Now my 2 inch, didn't be 2 inch, it wasn't 2 inch, it's 3 inches. So if I go back and forth, and then my 3 turned out to be 3.5. The point is, I was pretty satisfied that I'm not gonna get this down to the 10th of an inch, even to the nearest inch. There's a margin of error, and we'll discuss that in a little bit. But it's close. It's close enough to say that's an approximate representation of their positions at shot 1. So if we pull a tape, there's Mr. Slager's position, and there's Mr. Slager's position close up. That's the direction of Mr. Scott. I hooked the tape on the back side of the 2x4, the one towards Mr. Slager's back. You can see it right here.
Let me ask you this, so your measurements for the shot positions start from your silhouette in between his feet, correct?
Yeah,
Could you
Yes.
have used the muzzle or his arm outstretched?
the
or-
question is, what point of reference do you use for 0? Absolutely, you could have done that, but reason I didn't want to go any higher on any of the silhouettes, Mr. Scott's or Mr. Slager's. I just told you the silhouettes can't be exactly to scale, okay? Plus, I was doing sort of a line of sight, and that is, what are you seeing at that distance? I'm not representing what you see, but that's where it was. So they ended up for both of them right about between the legs, okay?
So understanding if someone else measured from the tips of their toes, their measurements would be different than yours?
Exactly, the tips of the toes, the end of the gun, to the butt, the reference points are going to vary depending on the performance. The overall relationships stay generally the same. Okay. Could you figure out the offset? It depends on comparing the 2 people's work. I don't know. So this is Mr. Scott's silhouette at the position of the shot match. It's the same tape coming from the right to the left, and a straight expandable tape extended down approximately between where his legs would be to intersect with the tape. And when we did that, we ended up right at 17 feet. Okay, so based on my reference points and my first camera match, my results were approximately 17 feet apart.
So if you go up, probably to where his buttocks are, you might be at 16 feet
Yeah, I mean, if you pick a
from
piece,
Slager, from Mr. Slager.
yes,
Okay. Just
Yeah.
depends on where you pick to measure, and you pick the feet.
I picked straight down, not straight down, but approximately down from here. So we're back to the shot one references. This is 11/20, I'm sorry, the date change. This is our first attempt at it. And I'm not doing them chronological, you'll understand why in a second, but if we go back, this stays the same. Our reference always stays the same because, of course, that doesn't change. So we're back there about a month earlier than the ones I just showed you, and we'll go through. Whoops. I'm not going to show you the variation, but there's the end result right there
On another day.
on another
So
day.
you're trying
30
to check yourself?
30 days. There were multiple reasons we went back, but it served a good purpose in that I repeated this process 3 times. And yes, to check, to see how repeatable the process is. If I couldn't go back there, I went back there the next time was 18 feet. I'd have to look at my methodology. But I didn't have to. So if we look at this, again, we're at November 20th. There's Mr. Slager. Mistake on my part, I didn't use the same reference points. I'll show you my adjustment or offset for each of them. I pulled the tape from Mr. Scott to Mr. Slager. I'm not making excuses, but there was a lot going on. We never even got done that day. It was our first attempt at this. It was a good learning curve, but we got core parts of it done. So, looking at that, the tape starts with Mr. Scott coming towards Mr. Slager, and if we use the same endpoint, and that is the 2x4 towards Mr. Slager's rear end, or backside, I'm sorry, it's 8.5 inches, okay? So we got 16 feet, 8.5 inches. There's Mr. Scott's position during this camera match, and the tape was pulled to here. It wasn't pulled, if you remember, 17 ended here. So there's an offset there. And based on tape, and basically as simple as cut this out, piece it on here, I came up with 2.5 inches to come up with my 0 point. And you'll see a table of all this in a second. Back to shot one reference. Now we're April 19, 2016. There's shot one reference. There is my camera match.
Repeatable.
Yes, repeatable in my opinion. I think that anybody using similar methodology can go out there and do the same thing. As long as you get a good, and you'll see the way I did it, a good way to control the camera position and have patience, it can be done. It can be repeated. So, again, the variability and reference points, I'm not at the end here, I'm a little ways away. And you'll see the offset in a second. Mr. Scott's position, we do have the same type of reference. And if you remember, our first one was right here, and you'll see that in the table. We're right at 17 feet. And here's the table. The visit on December 17, 15, I referenced that Mr. Slager was 0, the distance was 17, there is no offset, so 17. The first time out there, I pulled from,
The second time.
first time, no, 11 point was the first time out.
Okay.
It's not chronological. Anyways, the first time out there, I pulled from Mr. Scott to Mr. Slager, and I came up with 16 feet, 8.5 inches, but my 0 wasn't placed right, 2.5 inches, I'm at 17 feet 1 inch. April, 0 was good, but no, it wasn't. You'll see the offset in play here. The total was 17. I had an offset because I was not quite in the middle of the 2x4, but I was closer to the point of 0 than I was to the middle. 1.25 inches, 17.25 inches was my result for April. So my opinion is that approximately 17 feet at the time of shot one, using my references. So then to fulfill the next request, and that is, how about 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and even 8? I could have repeated individual shots one at a time, just like you saw, but I won't say it would still be there. It would take a considerable amount of time. So what I chose to do, since 2 through 8 becomes less of an issue than 1, I made a compilation of all the shots. Let me explain how I did that. We already saw shot 1. Well, shots 2 through 7, and I'll explain why I can't do 8 in a minute. What I did is take those frame captures, overlay them on top, and use Mr. Slager as the fixed point. I lined, so every shot had Mr. Slager on top of each other. And then I basically removed everything in between except for the position of Mr. Scott. And we repeated this process at the field. There's our reference lines.
Now, are those, is that from the Santana video, or are those your cutouts?
Those are my cutouts. Oh, I'm sorry, no, I apologize. They're not that good. Those are from the Santana video.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry,
Those are from the Santana video.
Okay.
So I create my transparency, and we repeat this. So there's an example of attempt to camera match. There's camera match, attempt 3, and there's what I consider the match. If we bring in, I'm just going to bring them all in here. So each one required a little repositioning. Just to give you an example, there's a lot between what you're not seeing to get each one where you felt was approximately correct. Now, you see that 8's not on here. When you look at the Santana video closely, you'll see there's camera movement between 7 and 8. It means 8 can't be applied with this process.
With those
You
frames,
can't link it to this, right?
you would have had to redo shot 8 with other
Well,
reference
I'm
points.
pretty sure when you look at it, you lose Mr. Slager in the photo. Even if you do, you can't. If he's in there, you'd have to do it all over again with just those 2 reference points. I didn't do that.
So that, which is number 60 in the right-hand corner, that is your recreation
Yes.
with the silhouettes that you can see the 2x4s
Yes.
on each thing.
Yes.
So toggle between your recreation and the video overlay that you did. All right, so there is some movement there in shot 1's foot.
Yep, and let me explain, explain that. This was a whole separate process than what we have seen before in terms of, I didn't continue on the work of another one. This is the first frame I said I didn't want to use. Okay, that's why that and that's the frame. The silhouette was modeled after the frame I said earlier was clearer, but the compilation was built pretty early on, and I had that pre-frame. It's 1 frame on it, it's a 30th of a second. And if you watch the foot position between the 2, right there, there's a little movement there, but, so, I didn't go back and redo the compilation, redo that process. I
For
went-
1/30th of a second.
Right, right. Knowing that I already established shot 1 position 3 times in a repeatable fashion too. Okay, it's not like I'm representing, that's the only work I've done for shot 1. This is the setup on the November first attempt, or first processing of the scene. Got a exemplar phone mounted to the fence post with a magic arm mounted with 2 connected tripod heads. I basically would have to hang over this fence and manipulate the camera, watching my monitor here with the overhead on it. And I would,
With the transparency thing on it?
yeah, overhead, going back and down, the transparency, yes. There's a generator about 200 feet down running, controlling all this, and so that's my little base of operations. I had taken a different device, which you'll see with me. I'm pretty good at re-engineering stuff. So I took a optical measuring device, it's base plate that allows you to move in the X and Y axis and also in the Z axis, or Y, X, and then Z, and mounted other things to it to allow me to mount my phone to it. I couldn't fit it where I was going. So I had to go to plan B, which is the magic arm and the 2 tripod heads. accomplished, I got the job done, but I was disappointed. It sat there as an anchor all day long. Now, we pulled the tape from the practical location of Mr. Santana to our location of Mr. Scott, and the approximate distance is...
Mr. Slager? Mr.
Yes,
Slager?
Mr. Slager, I apologize. 131 feet, 9 inches. So they're about 131 feet. That's viewing from approximately Mr. Slager's position back to where I'm working.
That's 40-something yards?
Just over. So there's just another view. There's my work area, the generator's right there. There's our work trailer, and then Mikey and Tim are working on other things.
I'm sorry.
Mikey and Tim are working on other things.
So, putting all this together from shot 1 to shot 7, what were the approximate distances that you came up with?
We're back to reference points. The reference point that I chose to use is this frame from the Santana video, and it's where Mr. Slager's bending over and his elbow's going up. And if you watch the video from here, it results in him drawing his gun. So that's that can be variable. I chose, I had to choose a reference point. That was my reference point. If I choose a different one, it'll change a little bit, but that's T0 right there. So if I reference everything off of that, and bring in shot 1, the time using the audio wave file, or the wave track of the Santana video, from my reference point is 1.49 seconds. That's the representation of that wave file. That's 1.49 seconds. Okay? And approximately 17 feet. 2 was at total 1.86 seconds from T0, a gap between T1, or shot 1 and shot 2 of 0.37 seconds, and the distance is approximately 20 feet 5 inches. 3, the total elapsed time is 2.17 seconds. The gap between T2 or shot 2 and shot 3 is 0.31 seconds. And again, we're adding each of the wave files for the graphic representation of each shot. Is the total distance now is 23 feet 8 inches, approximately. 4, total elapsed time of 2.47 seconds. Time between shot 3 and shot 4 is 0.3 seconds, and we're at about 25 feet 8 inches. 5, total elapsed time is 2.77 seconds. Another 0.3 seconds between shot 4 and shot 5, with a total distance of approximately 29 feet 3 inches. Shot 6 brings us out to 3.07 seconds. Total elapsed time. Gap between 5 and 6 is 0.29 seconds, and we're up to 30 feet 7 inches.
30 or 31?
31. Good eyes. 31 feet 7 inches. And then 7, we have a total elapsed time of 3.35 seconds. The gap stays the same between 6 and 7 at 0.29, and our distance is now 34 feet 9 inches. Now, I can't show you a visual of Mr. Scott's position on 8, but I can show you the time. The time comes out, shot 8, there's a pause, not quite a second, between shot 7 and shot 8. It's at 4.18 seconds, and it's a 0.83 second pause between those two shots.
And so shot 8 is not depicted on here, and this is not intended to represent the distance between,
No,
it's just the time.
I wanted to show the time, yes.
And between here and there, the camera moved.
Yes.
Santana's camera.
Yes. Yes.
Now, I'm going to show you what has been marked as State's Exhibit 251, if you could come around to me. State's 251, is that the same last slide that we just saw?
It is.
And is that a fair and accurate representation of the approximate distances and times of the shooting by Mr. Slager Mr. Scott,
It is.
and a fair and accurate representation of the distances as well,
Based on my work, it is.
approximately.
Approximately.
Your Honor, this time we have under states 251.
Says the fence.
Your Honor, just reading our case.
It said that.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, states 239, which has not been admitted but is for identification, and testified to by the pathologist, are those the same thing, 239 and 251?
They are one's just a enlargement.
Okay. Your next chapter was to establish some other points of interest regarding distances of the, where Mr. Scott's body landed and where the taser landed behind Mr. Slager during the shooting, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And again, if you could explain to the jury how you determined distances regarding that.
Okay, so we're going to talk first about Mr. Scott's point of rest. This is a perspective view of one of our silhouette alignments with a measuring tape pulled basically along the line of the silhouettes all the way to the fence, which is between the alley and the field.
Now, again, this is a 2D
Yes,
presentation. I mean, Mr. Scott could have been to the left or the right of that line.
well, we're getting a little ahead, but we're going to show you that. Mr.
If you're
Scott-
going to get there later,
Yeah.
we'll skip that.
I'm not, again, this is approximate, I'm not saying that that's exactly the line traveled. It could be shifted towards you, shifted away, it's an approximation.
And
It's an
that
approximate path.
That dip in the fence in the background,
Yes,
that's visible in the Santana video as well.
that was there at the time of the incident, as well as, of course, post-incident.
Okay.
Now, the reference is pulled to the end on that. What we see is, down that tape, there's two unique features that stay, one stays permanent, the other stays, semi-permanent, it's a little dynamic. The first is a rock right here. The second is a very large anthill. I say semi-dynamic because the shape's gonna change, but it stayed put. It was there at the scene, the time, the day of the incident. It was there during every one of our visits. And when we look at it on our tape, pulled from Mr. Slager, there's our rock and there's part of the anthill. So we're talking that the area that we're looking at here starts at about 52 feet from Mr. Slager, approximately 52 feet. If we look at the far end of the anthill, it ends at approximately 54. Again, that edge is dynamic. Not to say it's exactly 54, but it's given.
The anthill probably changed from
That's
April 4th to when you were there.
That's what I mean by dynamic, yeah. The little ants change things around, sure. So we have a range, an approximate range, 52 to 54 feet, using those identifying physical features to compare something against. We look at some of the photos, and what we see in this photo right here, we see the rock, and you can see the anthill. There's the rock. There's our 52 feet from my photo. Here's another photo. These are ants on Mr. Scott's arm. 52 feet as far as the begin point for this. So the approximate location of Mr. Scott at rest is approximately near that rock and anthill, 54 feet away from Mr. Slager. So now taser point of rest position 937.49 to 937.51, frame 20. Camera matching the taser's point of rest We know it changed, it was picked up and moved and recollected, so we can't look at photographs for that. We have to, we can't look at crime scene markers and distances and stuff, so we have to recreate it. Here's the frame capture, 434, of the original Santana video showing the taser at point of rest. We saw this yesterday, or something very similar to it. So the same process, advance a little bit. Got light boxes for the monitor to make it easier. We've got sunshades here, got a ladder. Here's the device I mentioned earlier. What I've got here is two rods with linear bearings in this plate. So this plate can move smoothly back and forth. On top of that is the device I mentioned earlier. This is from an optical comparator. It's a machinist tool. And I can precisely move this tabletop in 2 axes.
Now, in the photo for slide 11, the shooting scene would be behind the photographer.
Project. Well, the photographer's behind the phone.
Santana is behind the phone.
Yeah, I can find
Yeah.
Santana looking this way, looking that way,
Okay.
looking out at the screen, like that.
But whoever took this photo,
Oh, me? I am
Yeah.
standing,
and everything's behind you.
yes,
Okay.
yes. So this gives me a lot more control over the camera. I can now move this, move it along those axes. I can also change the vertical height. This is another machinist tool I modified to allow that. And I have dual tripod heads here. So that is a modification. The first thing I took, the first device I built that I couldn't use, I made so I could use it this time. So with that, I used it on not only the, there's a closer look, should just brought that up, but same thing. There's a picture of the monitor, transparency. That's what I'm looking down at to make my matches. Here is frame 434. I'm sorry, that's not frame 40. That's my picture on camera match to 434. There's 434. There's the taser.
Okay, and what's going on with the hat?
I didn't know anything, I really didn't pay attention to it till last night. The hat is moving. Let me go back to the right side. Let's look at this right here. It moves.
Were you trying to match anything regarding the hat in this segment?
Well, our intention was to, it really was, but I did a scene investigation on myself last night. And I chronologically listed all the photos that were taken that day that had the hat included in it. And I found out what happened. I bring the photos up, I'll just explain it. When we started off with camera matching of shot 1. And we had a tape pull, and the tape pulled from hooking at that base, the 2x4 base, towards Mr. Scott, and the tape went over the hat. Okay? Later, we did this, and we did the drone. This hat originally was in position. I can show you photos. It's in position. When Mikey, my assistant, or not the lowest end guy, pulled the tape came across, pulled the hat. We put it back in place before we did the drone flyover. It's now back over. In our photo, if you look at the photos I have, that one, there's a noticeable, I won't call it, it's a dip in the yellow brick road, almost in the middle. And in the original photos, when we were doing shot 1, that hat was away from it. This photo, it was near it, it was almost touching it. And then back when we did the drone, it was back away. So I wasn't in this. Should have I said, oh, shoot the hat? I didn't. I should have. It moved.
The taser is what we're interested in the measurement for,
Yep.
for this section.
Yes.
Okay.
But based on my review of my own work, that moving doesn't impeach my methodologies. It didn't move because I didn't have it lined up properly. So if we take a look at that, we had an exemplar taser with us, same process, tripod, nice picture of the plumb bob here, drop it down. And that's after we placed it based on the previous photograph. And we pull the tape, we pull it from the taser back to Mr. Slager's firing position. Understand this, the video previous to the firing position, you have Mr. Slager will be somewhere in this area here. We didn't know where to locate that, but that line is just the reference we had. So we've got 140 inches from there to there, along approximately that path, approximately 140 inches.
Okay, and then after doing, maybe not chronologically speaking, but finally you put the evidence together and began anchoring the other media to resume making the timeline.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
So now we're going to fit more pieces of the puzzle together to create this event timeline. So what evidence is out there with the potential of linking? We have, of course, the centerpiece here, the Santana cell phone video. We have Mr. Slager's in-car video and audio. We have the dispatch audio. Mr. Scott's cell phone records for the day in question. The taser lock times, which we've discussed. And, of course, all of what we just spent most of the morning on is the scene evidence. So if we look at, this is a frame out of our drone. We take the people doing the videoing out with Photoshop. We add our 3D models of Mr. Slager's patrol car, Mr. Scott's Mercedes. These cars weren't in the drone photo. I added them in because they are along the path, so I added those in. And this cone represents approximately the field of view of the in-car video on Mr. Slager's patrol car. So if we look at this video, and I spent a fair amount of time with dash cams, and most of them are proprietary, which means they won't export their videos out unless you own other software, which I don't own. So for me to create my video of this, I used a screen capture program. When I played that, I captured it playing on the screen and used that for my work. If we had the original actually goes off the screen here and shows the whole Mercedes, but it doesn't affect us here because everything we're interested in happens from the driver door left. And that, my capture portion, that was 6 minutes 24, maybe the entire thing, but either way, 6 minutes 24. I don't show the entire, all the way back to when the video starts when Mr. Slager's on remount. Yes, I should know that. It's an MPEG-4 video. I can't sync the video to anything because it's a standalone piece. Nothing ties into it with any other source of video.
In other words, you don't have two videos showing the same thing like you might in a Walmart over there.
Yeah,
You have that video.
I could tie in one of the later responders' dash cam, but there's no need to because it had nothing to do with the event. But what we can do is we can take the audio from Mr. Slager's lapel mic in-car
Or belt
recording.
mic.
Belt mic. And we can sync that. What can we sync it with? Well, we can sync with the dispatch audio, which we'll see in a second. This is just a graphical, pictorial representation of the dispatch audio captured out of an auto editing program. So that's just the sound that's there. The file name, Slager RT transmissions, the Windows media files, 2 hours and 33 minutes. Of course, our event is only a very small part of that. So Windows media, we can't do anything because, of course, it's not a video file. We can sync audio. What can we sync it with? Well, we can sync it with, before I go to the last thing, it only comes on when there's a call. Okay, so it's not a continuous recording. So we're going to hear it come on, go off, and it's two-way. We're going to hear Mr. Slager outputting, we're going to dispatch, or other officers inputting. So we can sync that with the in-car belt mic, and we can anchor it to Mr. Santana's cell phone video. We've discussed the cell phone video a lot. It's the file name that I received was here. It's 3 minutes and 2 seconds long, and we can sync it with the dispatch audio, and I'll explain how that's done. I already covered this. You find the same thing that happened in two of them, you bring them together, make them stand on top of each other. That's syncing. That's a line. Anybody can do it if you're patient enough and zoom in enough on whether it's a video or an audio. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to take Mr. Slager's audio from his in-car and find where along the dispatch it fits. And we're trying to do the same thing with Mr. Santana's cell phone video, finding where along here does it fit. If we can link those, we now have a complete chain between all three pieces. And if we take a look at the call dispatch from Mr. Slager,
This is the real-time audio that has been introduced into evidence. Correct? State Exhibit 8.
go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, so if you listen to that,
223 dispatch, 1080 on foot, down Front Street, black male, green shirt, blue pants.
That's from the dispatch.
yeah, when you start listening to all this, whether individually or collectively in this, you'll see dispatch is very clear. Whether it's coming in or going out, it's nice and clear. And you'll see it's a little different when we get to the in-car, based on some factors. So here's the audio from Mr. Slager's in-car. There's just a graphical representation of it. And two versions. This is unenhanced raw. There's nothing done to it. If we listen to this, usually it takes a couple times. You can hear. Something going on a
Do
little
we
bit.
have headphones for the jurors? Let's try the unenhanced with the headphones.
Sure. Tell me when you're ready.
All right, play the unenhanced. One more time.
Sure.
Okay, now play you applied some filters.
Yes. I applied a denoise filter where if you have a WAV file, you pick a point where there's no voice or other noises going on, and you take a representative, you create, that's your map of the noise, and you apply that across a D-click filter, because when he's running, his utility belt's clicking around. So I applied some standard filters to the audio track to bring this part out.
One more time.
Okay, so one's a lot clearer than the other, but they say the same thing. Okay, so use them and line those two up on top of each other. So this is the alignment, and this is the audio from what you just listened to. This is the dispatch. and this is the point of intersection between the two. Then we have Officer Habersham's call to dispatch, which is after the event, that we can use as our second or our anchor point to go to Santana's.
If you see my car next to Gerald's, we're behind the pawn shop in the grassy field.
Okay, so in the first one, you were anchoring the belt or the mic from Slager and the dispatch with the green shirt, blue pants
Yes.
language. The second one is Habersham, dispatch, and Santana video link.
Yes,
Or
we're
anchor.
working on that anchor right
Okay.
now. I will say that I've listened to this a lot. I don't know what about the audio system, what we just heard earlier, when you get your hands on the evidence, if you listen to that dispatch, it says what, that said the green shirt, blue pants, and all that. So we're looking at Habersham, we just listened to dispatch, nice and clear. We now look at Mr. Santana's video recording, not the video, but the audio from it, and we're able to hear.
See my car next to Gerald's, we're behind the pawn shop in the grassy field.
There's our anchor point. So here's an example. My anchor points are close but not right on. It causes an echo. So if you listen to this, you'll actually show demonstration of a line.
If you see my car next to Gerald's, we're behind the pawn shop in the grassy field.
So if I pull the one wave file a little bit, get an alignment, play it again, the echo.
If you see my car next to Gerald's, we're behind the pawn shop in the grassy field.
So if we look at that, the end result is we have a match of the Slager in-car to the dispatch. We have the other end of the event captured or lined, synced, and that is Santana, Mr. Santana's cell phone audio linked to the dispatch. We have video for Mr. Slager's in-car. We have no video for dispatch. We have video for Mr. Santana. And basically the green on the left is the in-car. We have 1 minute and 24 seconds where we have audio but no video. And then we come in with Mr. Santana's cell phone. That's the event broken down by what you can see or hear.
So for 1 minute and 24 seconds on your timeline, there's going to be no video from anywhere.
Right, all you do is be listening.
And a portion of it will have some animation.
Well, we'll get to that, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Hazer clock drift, I think.
Yeah,
Already covered.
we can get that.
Okay.
So I'm going to hand you State's Exhibit 245. Is this the flash drive with your initials on it?
It is?
And this has the timeline that you've compiled, the information you've reviewed for the jury with today,
This is the end result of everything you saw today, yes.
right? And
Oh, I need to go through the slideshow first to explain it. We got one step ahead of us. In order to fully appreciate what you're going to see, I need to explain the screen layout. So I forgot one of the chapters. It's very short. Okay, chapter 6. It's going to take a minute to load because that file we're going to see is embedded into it, so just be a second.
let me ask you this while we're waiting on that to
Sure.
load. Can you walk off for me from, let's say, here, 17 feet?
Where do you want me to go? That way?
Yeah.
Okay. You have to tell me.
Well, here, you take this, I don't need to testify.
You want me to go that? Yeah? Okay, we'll get it right.
Wait, don't cut me now.
Try not to.
All right, so this would be 0.
Okay.
Need my glasses?
No, 17 feet is where my fingers on my chest.
Okay. And then, 34 feet, which is T7.
You have to back up, okay?
Yeah. 34 feet, so shot 7 at 34 feet, and then that's the last one that you have measured out. Okay, so if you could now, with chapter 6, just explain to the jury what they're looking at when they see this timeline, kind of the legend, I guess you'd call it.
Okay.
How long more do you think you have for this witness?
Probably, this one would take 3 or 4 minutes, and I think I'm about done.
Okay.
So everything we've talked about up till now leads to what you're going to see. To explain the layout of the video you'll watch, there'll be a running clock up in the top left-hand corner. That is synced to the timer in Mr. Slager's in-car video. The graphic of the S5 phone is over there on the right, the left-hand side. It'll turn green when there's a phone call going on. These are the phone calls that are applicable to the event. There's 3 of them. The duration is 80 seconds, 27 seconds, and then 1,282 seconds for the third one. So when one of these is going on, the phone will turn green and turn off. It will look like that, okay? The event clock down at the bottom, you're going to see not only have that clock, but this is a rolling clock. This will change, sync with that, to give you an idea of what's coming. What we run underneath it is events.
Now again, back to this clock issue.
Sure.
The clock in the corner, the clock that's synced on, laid across the ground, that's the time of day.
Kind of, yes.
Okay. That you have seen. But for our purposes, we could have started at 0 and just said how many minutes and seconds this whole thing lasts.
Sure, I mean, if you're going to get in and figure out differences between events, you'll have to subtract the 2 times. It'd be easier if it was a 0 reference, but it's still have to do the same thing. Along the bottom, what we see in that's clear is from here to here, and then you can see it's grayed out. But these are all events. We're on top of, we're starting an event, a warning event. He's entering the warning zone right here.
Approximately.
Yeah, it's all approximate, as I said before. There's a 3-second gap, and then taser 1. This is going to move this way. So as this approaches, once it comes in line with here, we'll start seeing something happen to deal with taser 1. And it goes on. So that's the current event. The upcoming events will move this way, and the outgoing past events will move off to the left. The taser indicator used up in the top left-hand corner, that will be blank or nothing highlighting it if there's nothing going on with the taser in terms of activation. And if there's an activation, it will not only highlight in red, the number of the activation will be shown too. So it will increase sequentially as the other activations occur. And then we've seen versions of this. We have our evidence markers there large so you can see approximately where they were. The active time, I won't go into detail there. Now we're going to get to that portion that we just discussed. There's going to be a minute 24. You're going to be sitting looking at this. Now, the things that will be happening that you can watch is this, because that will change. This won't change. Once it comes on to the event, it stays on the entire event, it's going to stay green.
Because the phone was
The phone was
open.
on for 1,200 seconds. This will change. So if you want to know what's coming up, you can get a clue by looking at this, and it will show much better on a computer screen. It's much more legible, but this will be moving, so you can watch this, and it will tell you, like right here, there's another taser gun coming up. And then you'll be listening. That's what you'll be listening.
And again, during that space, it's not that you're saying nothing was happening, we just don't have a video of it, and you didn't try to draw it in with an animation.
Exactly. I'm not going, well, no, I'm not going to try and attempt to show the struggle or anything like that. It's not possible accurately, and no, I did not do that. So we're going to sit here and listen and watch a little bit. I'm sorry, skip this one. When Mr. Santana's video does come into the timeline, it's shown in two portraits. It starts portrait, and then he shifts the camera landscape. So portrait will show like this, and landscape will show like that.
And this incorporates the original unenhanced video.
Yes. Now if I could have,
Now, again, states 245. This is the actual timeline that you've created.
this is the end product of everything we've discussed. Yes. Good? Everybody?
Yeah. Can you minimize whatever's behind it?
Oh, absolutely. Everybody good? Okay.
On a gray color Mercedes, take tag 1318 Golf Golf.
This is Kelly 223 at 933.
Five one records channel.
This is Kelly 55 933.
You like to take insurance card? What's that? Okay, let's start with your license. The reason for the stop is your brake light's off. Okay.
I don't have to do it yet because, like I said, I just walked across my neighbor. I was trying to get that money, but he still has insurance for every one of us.
So, do you have insurance on the car?
No, I don't have insurance.
Okay. Well, if you don't have insurance on your car, you bought it, you have to have insurance.
Well, I haven't bought it yet. I'm saying I'm about to do that Monday.
You just you bought
To
it.
drive the car.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because my car's down, so you can drive the car.
Okay.
I can call in and you can
Fine. Yeah, let me have your driver. So you don't have any paperwork in the glove box? No registration in there, no insurance?
He has all that.
Why does it? Okay. But you're buying this car.
Yes, sir.
Did you already buy it?
No, not yet. I'm about to buy it Monday.
It's minute ago you bought it.
Well,
And you're changing everything over on Monday.
I'm sorry about that. They're going to, I'm going to do everything on Monday.
Oh, okay. All right, we'll be right back with you. Let's get the car.
223 dispatch 1080 on foot, down Craig Street, black male, green shirt, blue pants.
Black male, green shirt, blue pants, down Craig Street. All units north in emergency status due to 223 station on foot.
I'll dispatch a copy. I'm en route from Scarsville Code.
936.
We're en route to help. 223. What's your direction of travel down? What we got now?
Turn right down Craig Street. Right on the grove. Turn right down yellow driveway to the pawn shop.
Copy, More Rivers heading that way now.
156, step it up.
Damn, we're on the code. 55 dispatch, give me a call for Craig.
Remount Road next to the Money Man and the fire station.
I'm at the Rivers in the pawn shop. Where you at now?
223 dispatch, shots fired. Subject is down. You grab my taser.
223 shots fired. He grabbed your chaser. Subject is down at 938.
34 copies on the route.
934, 938.
One's in the area. I'm just having to locate them.
That's probably 938.
Pawn shop on Rivers.
That's all dispatch starting on that.
A kid come directly behind the pawn shop.
Dispatch. I need to secure my vehicle.
Probably 223.
Route to where's your vehicle?
Fucking abuse.
Remount Dakota was the location of the stop.
241 dispatch. I'm with his vehicle at the advanced auto parts.
On 241, securing vehicle at advanced auto.
223, are you 10-4? Everyone 10-4, jump to the suspect. He's going to come behind the pawn shop with a kid. Gunshot wound. Looks like his chest. To the right side. All responsive. I copy. Make sure the scene's secure with one ass. Is locate another gunshot wound to the butt. 348 round.
Current location of the gunshot victim.
Behind the pawn shop. If you see my car next to Gerald's, we're behind the pawn shop in the grassy field.
Are you referring to Mega Pawn on Rivers?
Mega Pawn.
654 Rivers Avenue. Dispatch copy at 940.
Your Honor, at this time, I offer State's Exhibit 245.
Your Honor, the defense objects.
It's for identification purposes at this time.
Is now a good time for break?
Yes. You through with this one?
I
break for lunch now, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to break until 2:15, till 2:15. The exhibit you just referred to, is that what we just saw in the,
It's just the timeline on
the video that we just saw?
Yes, sir.
That's what you just offered? Okay. All right, for identification purposes at this time. 2:15.